Whoa, what's going on, everybody? It is Jay Wilson, and today we are talking substrate. As long as I don't get attacked by the dog. So we are talking and jamming with substrate. I'm doing stuff from my phone today for a specific reason. And that specific reason is I want to be able to show you this new aquarium and talk a little bit about why it's set up and all of that hubbub jazz. So we'll kind of kick it off because the foot's still jacked up. So the folks that were asking, yes, it is still jacked up. I am in a boot and I have an MRI on Friday, but it slows me down, but it doesn't necessarily change everything that's happening in life. It just makes it very, very, very difficult to do a lot of things. HC Aqua, John Edwards. John Edwards, get ready to be a dad, man. So look at this hair, huh? It's pretty nice and flat. Good kudos to you, man. If you need anything, you know where I'm at. What up, 6'9"? Okay, so I want you folks, Cunningham Cichlids, I want you folks to kind of wrap your head around some questions regarding substrate and kind of get that mentality going on exactly what we're talking about, what we want to get to. I've got some talking points because I want to make sure that I stay on task and I want to hit all of these things. There's been a couple people that said they're really enjoying the Instagram posts. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you don't have to, but I post a lot of really funny, kooky things, and it's all just for laughs. And so it's jwill07. You can find it on Instagram, super easy. Tonight's drink, Weller, Coke Zero. So yes, somebody just mentioned Biggs covered dirt in terms of substrate for a planted aquarium, or why you would use dirt, mud, things like that. This I'm actually going to cover all of them and discuss why people use certain ones, why they don't, why we steer towards certain things, what my preferences are, and what I've evolved to enjoy in terms of substrate. And is substrate necessary? Does it provide us with something that is beneficial to our aquarium? So my first question to you would be, what is the first substrate that you used when you started in this hobby? And then what have you evolved to and why? Was hoping organic soil would be a topic even at the perimeter of the hobby. So organic soil it's there, it's relevant, you can use it. It's just not a lot of people want to deal with a lot of the extra work that goes into prep it. Good thing there's no milk coming out of your mouth. Okay, sorry, let me stop. What is Weller? I'm from the UK. Weller is a whiskey straight bourbon from Buffalo Trace Distillery. So painted gravel evolved to crushed coral for Africans. Okay, so let's actually start talking about gravel. That'll be the first one we talk about, and I'll discuss it. And it could be anything. It could be colored gravel, whether it glows under actinic light, which is kind of that bluish light, black light, or it evolves into pink and green and black and white and brown and red and yellow, purple. I mean, the gamut doesn't stop. It really doesn't. And the idea for gravel is it's kind of inexpensive and it could serve quite a few purposes. So let's talk about those purposes. So gravel is really good because it's accessible at a lot of places. And a lot of folks look at sand and they think, I'm not sure what I should do in terms of substrate, but everybody is on this gravel kick, right? You go in the big box retailer, they got blue gravel, black gravel, they even mix it up with hot pink and yellow. And what do? Everything starts to fall inside that gravel. It starts to build this nitrate rich environment because all of the organic waste is happening. And I just think it's kind of a setup for failure for folks that don't really understand the denitrification cycle, the nitrification cycle, or any of that science behind it. So we get in, we dump 18 bags and we've got a gravel bed this big. Now for some, gravel is used for specific purposes. Things can kind of get themselves tucked away inside the gravel, right? Breeding. Certain fish would feel comfortable dumping their eggs there, knowing that they're safe from predators. Maybe they're safe from other tank mates. So that's kind of the idea. And so gravel is always going to have its place. Now, when I talk about gravel, I'm not talking about, let me see if this stuff comes off. I'm not talking about like these garden small rocks, right? I'm actually talking about gravel, the shiny looking grossness that does happen, and it's gross to me, but it may not be gross to you. So gravel is predominant. It's not going anywhere. It's inexpensive. It's readily accessible. And honestly, it probably comes with a lot of these all-in-one setups for kids as well. So now let's talk about marbles, because I've seen this as a trend before in the hobby where people are putting marbles in their aquarium. They could be those plastic rocks. They could be real marbles, whether they're colored or they're transparent, whatever. What I've noticed is those that jump to that don't realize that a design is also for breeding, for smaller fry to hide, so that they can raise these young and hopefully ultimately either resurrect a species or get that species to wherever it is they're selling that specific species to. So marbles is another one. Now, if I miss one that you are familiar with, please drop it in the comments. So now you have bare bottom. Zits, zilch, nada, nothing. It's just glass. I'm not talking tile, literally bare bottom. What would you use this for? Is this the right way to do it? I will say that there is a right place and right time for bare bottom, but most of the time I feel bare bottom is not in the best interest of the fish and its habitat. It's more in the best interest of us because we don't want to do specific maintenance. But we do pose a risk to the bacteria, and I'll get to that in a minute because I don't want to run down a rabbit hole with that because I want to tie that all together. A lot of people use bare bottom for fry grow outs, which again will tie into that. Thank you, Josh. And its design is it's super easy. We can see the fish, we can scoop them, we can move them to the next tub, tank, whatever the case is. Now you have just riverstone. I've seen just riverstone laid down. That's another, aesthetics thing for somebody. They just want to do something very similar, to a bare bottom, but they want a little bit more love. Very easy to clean. So you've got that. Then you've got all your decorative rocks, like the things where, if I was going to set up a Ninja Turtle aquarium or something like that, we would see that transpire in an aquarium. That is purely aesthetics. That is purely what somebody wants to look at. And that's typically where gravel makes his way in, is because we're recreating Bikini Bottom from SpongeBob. So we bring in, high colored sand and all these little instruments and doodads and waximaloos, and we pop them right in, right? The other thing we've got is dirt. Biggs talked about it on his live stream. What I'm talking about in terms of dirt is most folks typically are using dirt for planted aquariums because there are a lot of minerals that can be held within soil, and it does help plants grow. Can plants grow in other substrates? Yes. 1,000% yes. 100%. But yes, they can. I have no dirt in the tank right here that I'll show later on in this stream and show you that you don't need dirt. But when you're trying to provide the most natural environment, it comes into play, which is what I'll talk about in terms of the way I evolved. So now we have pool filter sand. We have all these folks that are like, go to the landscape shop, gonna really check out some really cool sand. It was blasted from lava rock, and they get all these weird, crazy sands that are not actual sand mined or produced for an aquarium. They were produced for landscaping purposes, and we're finding purposes within the aquarium industry. We just have to be very careful with these, is because, well, sometimes they can have sharp objects and glass and things like that. And if you have fish that enjoy picking off the sand, they're going to rub their mouth very raw. If you have fish that kind of like to bury themselves in the sand, like some African cichlids do, you can risk causing injury to that fish. So we really have to pay attention to what we are putting in. It's like you have a child, you bring them in, you're like, man, I would really like to make a Lego crib. And then you just lay in the kid in the crib. No, like you need padding for the child and things like that. That's the same design for a fish. You have to understand what the fish's characteristics are and what they do naturally, and then you can kind of gear yourself towards what substrate you want. Then it comes to sands, like I'll use Carib Sea because I use Carib Sea a lot. Carib Sea has specific sands that are designed for specific purposes. You have oolite, you have sugar size, you have fine, you have aragonite, you have crushed coral, which crushed coral is literally what it is. It's a bunch of shells and coral just all muddled together and put in a bag. And a lot of African cichlid folks use it, and a lot of saltwater keepers use it because it helps to buffer the pH. So we've talked about gravel. We talked about sand, pool filter sand, bare bottom, marbles, decorative rocks, river stones. We talked about dirt. But they all have their place in the industry. So it's, whatever works for you in that case. And it's going to be based on how your fish will pop on top of that specific substrate. It's going to be the way you want your tank to look with that specific substrate. If you are designing something with glowfish and you throw in hot pink gravel, that's what you want to do. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's for a child, maybe it's for you do aquarium maintenance and it's for a daycare. Whatever the case is, there's always a place for it. There's a lot of science behind certain substrates for breeding, raising fry, medicating aquariums, so doing quarantine tanks. So there are just so many different facets of what substrate is for what, right? So right now I was seeing a ton of different people talking regarding just all of the different types of substrate. Organic soil is slow mode, had fish tanks pretty much since even my money in college breeding angels in Mbuna are in the early 70s. I still have bare bottom Plecos for utility tanks, but with tons of new plants, plantscapes, spare foam, all ecosystem stuff. Easy clean when feeding when you use bare bottom. And yeah, there's just set my first tank up using Tetra Complete Substrate. Yeah. Now, I will say that there are some really cool marketing tools like Ecosystem Bioactive Complete Substrate for all aquariums. Yeah, okay. So I want to talk about substrate and its benefits. So this may come a little sciencey, and if you have questions, you can slow me down. You can ask them. I want this to be something we can chat about together in terms of understanding why I will never do a bare bottom aquarium for a thriving ecosystem. I see it a lot in saltwater, and it just blows my mind. And then I will never do a tile type of bottom tank, and I probably will never get to gravel again. So before I digress to the science behind why substrate is very important, I started with gravel. I mixed it with those colorful plastic ice cube looking things. I've added a bunch of different stuff. I then went to, which was very popular, I ended up going to a very specific mix of Carib Sea that I was making, even though I didn't know they had it already, called Sahara. And basically what it is black and white sand mixed together. I was mixing a little bit more black into the white than what Carib Sea has, and I was doing it for my own aesthetics because I was tired of seeing the poop. But I just never switched my brain to looking at other substrates. So as I morphed over the years, I started going to a tan or even like really tan substrate. And let me show you. This is what I'm talking about when I say morphing with substrate. So as you can see, this is very, very tan, right? Very natural looking. Well, I think it looks natural. But when you're looking at it, the fish seem to really enjoy their environment. They're all real plants. We got some fake rocks, but everybody is active. Everyone is active. So when you talk about differentiating aquariums for substrate, talking about utility aquariums and ecosystems, yeah, it's very, very different. However, for most folks, it's one and the same, right? They don't have a ton of space or a lot of things that they can do in terms of keeping multiple tanks for multiple purposes. So when I talk about this, I'm talking from a generalization standpoint that we have to understand that even though like, ciao bro, I got like 57 tanks, guppies, platies, mollies, plecos, cichlids, shell dwellers. Dude, I'm vamping out over here into this new Suprachromis delrupii. It's gonna be so lit. They're not listening to that. They don't care that you turned your 4-car garage into a fish room and now you park your vehicle in the driveway during a hailstorm. They're not looking at that. They're looking at, I picked up a 75-gallon aquarium and I want to know what the best substrate is. The best substrate is one that you don't mess around with, okay? So where I've come from is all the way up to that natural, but then I add actual rocks, small pebbles to the mixture of sand. I do it in every aquarium. And I find that it provides a way more natural environment than I've ever experienced. And that's me morphing, right? I could say, well, I just started keeping super lime green gravel. Yeah, that's a personal preference, but I'm looking for more natural. I'm looking to create more of an environment. Other folks may be just looking to do as many as they can, and that's okay. And so when it comes to that, they may not need substrate. So let me go into the science behind why substrate is very important. So when you hear the term good bacteria, right? What do we hear? You're getting into the aquarium hobby, you're excited, you're like, hey, what's this nitric, what is this? What am I supposed to do? The bacteria? Well, hold on. I've been keeping fish tanks for like 4 years now, okay? And you just need more good bacteria than bad bacteria. Boom, done. Just, now you're good. You've learned everything. You don't have to check out any YouTube. It's done. It's good over bad, right? It's everything. That's it. Boom. That's kind of wrong. And it's kind of wrong because you will always have bad bacteria prevalent. And when you say you want more good bacteria than bad bacteria, how in the living life are you supposed to know that you have more good than bad? So let me break it down. I'm not going over the nitrogen cycle. That's not what we're talking about. But when I look at it, it's you have substrate. Your substrate becomes a medium in a sense. Whether it's gravel, whether it's sand, which I prefer, and I'll get to why I prefer it. And there's some science that supports that deeper sand beds are not as good, could potentially pose a risk, we'll get to that, as opposed to maybe a 1 or 2 inch sand bed. So there are 2 major different types of bacteria in your aquarium. If it's a medium, can we contact it, people? No. Maybe. So the idea is you have, and I'm not going to use scientific, you have aerobic and anaerobic bacteria, right? 2 major types. You have oxygen, thriving, consuming bacteria, and you have, I don't even care, I don't need oxygen, consuming bacteria. So for the sake of having fun, does anybody know which bacteria would thrive in the sand or gravel or soil or any media substrate that you put at the bottom of your aquarium? Anybody? I'm late. So yeah, there you go. See, that's what I like. This is anaerobic is the one that hangs out down low, right? And so the idea is folks get in there and they're like, boom, totally jacked up, man. Yeah, I put black gravel because I thought it was gonna make my fish's colors just pop, baby, you know, like, but it really doesn't, because some fish don't really like that. They get nervous and then they actually get darker. So the idea is now you got people going, change it up, bro. Put it in some sand. Dude's been running his aquarium, or the woman's been running their aquarium, or whoever's been running their aquarium has been running it for years, and they have developed this really cool, stable anaerobic bacteria colony at the bottom. And when they wreck it, they have a potential to cause a complete imbalance. Now, what does this bacteria do in our substrate? The reason why I prefer sand over all the other substrates is because I can then skim the top, right? I don't have to go and mix it up like crazy. I just literally have to skim the top, or what I do is I take a spatula and just woo right over the top, and it kind of lifts it up. My power heads and everything carry it to the filter and it sucks it up. So I'm cleaning. But I have a very quote unquote beneficial good bacteria colony that doesn't need oxygen living in that sand. But what are they doing? Why are they so beneficial? So there is, like Jordan Ellis said, there is far more surface area with sand as well. I don't want to get so deep into that, but yes, there is far more surface area in terms of bacteria colonization real estate, right? So when this bacteria goes in, what do? Well, because they don't need oxygen, they take the nitrate, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm shooting from the hip here. They take the nitrate and they convert it to nitrite, converting it to nitrogen to release it out of the aquarium, right? In essence, they are getting rid of the nasties, right? So the stronger the population you have, the better. Let's see, do not go over the nitrogen cycle. Whoop, whoop. Man, this thing's hard. Do not go over the nitrogen cycle, but for every beneficial bacteria, there's a non-beneficial bacteria, as it's been proven by Stan Schubel and breeding operations in Schubel. I'm gonna get to that in a second, because I've done quite a few talks regarding bacteria, and that whole good and bad, I'm gonna explain it in a way that's gonna blow your mind, regardless if you're breeding fish or you're walking your dog outside. So changes nitrate to hydrogen sulfide and nitrogen gas. Hydrogen sulfide comes about when it stays stagnant, I believe. And when it stays stagnant, it turns into that sulfur fart smeller, just like if Kevin Green, I don't know, I doubt he's in here, had farted in your aquarium, right? And there's studies to show that it could be toxic, although it's not as toxic out of the aquarium as it is in the aquarium. Or excuse me, vice versa. It's not as toxic in the aquarium as it is out of the aquarium in terms of large amounts. Some fish can probably process it a little better. However, the problem we have is that when it converts the nitrate to nitrogen, and I'm simplifying it, I'm skipping steps. It's just like, okay, it's nitrate. Let's turn it to nitrogen. Boop. And then it does its thing. So I've got folks saying hydrogen sulfide makes gas pockets in deeper sandbeds. Yes, it becomes anoxic, right? And somebody just said if you have good gas exchange and surface agitation, it clears. You are absolutely correct. These are all things experienced folks understand or should understand. However, when it's anoxic, that's when it turns into sulfur, the sulfur smelling crap. Now remember, I'm not a scientist, I'm not claiming to be a scientist, and I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. So when this solid, loving bacteria that you want, which actually I put into my aquarium all the time, and you can cultivate it beautifully within sumps and sandbeds. Now, saltwater folks have figured this out way faster than us freshwater folks have done. But the idea is, if you don't have that good surface agitation and you have too much that has become anoxic, what happens? It goes, and it sticks, right? And it will rip the oxygen straight out of the aquarium, resulting in fish death. So when folks say, and I've said it in the past, these deeper sand beds can cause these pockets of anoxic gas, which is sulfur doo-doo smell, then their fish died. Is it the likely cause? The hypothesis seems right, but the proof isn't necessarily there. So for the sake of arguments, there are far fewer cases, way far fewer cases, of folks never having any problems with deeper sand beds. But my recommendation is 1 to 2 inches. You're going to build a good established colony of anaerobic bacteria that are going to help you control those nitrates in the best possible way, right? And with those nitrates around there, you have a good bacteria colony, and then your plants can thrive. Deep sand beds usually kill fish when they dig it up head first. Deep sand beds are not good to do at large digging fish. Correct, which is why I said in the beginning, what you really want to pay attention to is what substrate you use for what fish. So if you've got a Malawi sand diver, you're not going to want to have a 17-inch sand bed, right? I'm not a huge person of sand beds in terms of being deep. I typically keep them 1 or 2 inches because fish are going to move anyways, right? They're going to move the sand wherever it is they want to go. And honestly, if you are utilizing some plants, and I'm going to get to why I only use some plants in certain aquariums where I don't put plants in others, but this whole generalization of just bruh, and I'm not picking on anybody, I'm simply coming from this standpoint. It's like, bro, just put plants in and it'll change the game. Yeah, essentially it would, right? Most ponds, most streams, rivers, lakes, they have vegetation. But they have it in an abundance where my stinking fish are not going to consume it at a faster rate than it can grow, and it just becomes extremely expensive. So for every plus, there is a minus within somebody's aquarium somewhere, right? So at the end of the day, you should have your substrate. Preferably, I enjoy sand, right? You should have that sand around 1 to 2 inches. The idea is you do not want to be kicking it up because of the need for that bacteria to colonize. And when it colonizes, it's doing a fantastic job of helping stabilize your aquarium. However, if you've had an aquarium for 20 years and it's been sitting, yeah, is there potential for anoxic gas, which smells like poop? Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Is it going to kill your fish? There is some science to say, well, results have shown it, but could improve it. And then there are others that say, based on the science of those molecules, this is me getting a little crazy, it's not strong enough to kill majority of fish unless the fish is weak, which leads me to adding to, for every good, there's a bad. I want you to stop for 1 moment, okay? Take a deep breath. Enjoy all of the bad bacteria. Smell it? Bad bacteria? So in any environment, there is always going to be good and bad bacteria prevalent. But what keeps bad bacteria away? Not necessarily good bacteria, right? Not necessarily good bacteria. I'll wait. Okay, I'll tell you. It's a stronger environment and a stronger immune system. Most bad bacteria is opportunistic. They're hanging out. They're like, sup, bro? We're just waiting for you to just feel not good. We're waiting for your dude to mess up with the pH, huge swing, temperature, huge swing. We're waiting for him to add that one fish he's been waiting for, and now it's going to disrupt this whole thing and stress everyone out, and that's when we're going to show up, right? So the idea to keep this bad bacteria away is, one, you need healthy fish, and that's getting from reputable sources. It's feeding quality food, and it's having a quality environment, and ultimately reducing the stressors. It's the same as a human being. We just don't have a slime coat. We have skin, right? If our skin dries up, what happens? It cracks, so we got to moisturize. So ideally, you want to have a stronger immune built fish. And the only way you do that is to provide it with a balanced system. That's with anything. Anything. So whether it's you didn't feed the right amount of food, or you overfed, or you did a water change and you didn't test, and now you're getting these massive swings, you're getting fish that are stressed out. Somebody just said that if they're bred well and all of this, yeah, they can be bred to the tier top best, super universal, award-winning Captain America strain of whatever it is. But I'll tell you what, if it stresses out multiple times over and becomes susceptible to issues, I don't care how good of a strain it is, at some point, if it's continually pressed to stress, horrible environment, horrible nutrition, it will succumb to bad bacteria attacking it, and to include parasites, whether it's a variety of different ornamental fish issues. That's it. So the idea is you want to have a stable environment, which also includes a stable substrate. So whether you're using gravel, sand, bare, whatever, you have to understand that there is different styles of ways of decorating an aquarium, but sometimes that's not the right way for the specific fish that you want. So my recommendation for the best substrate. The best substrate is up to the fish you want to keep. My recommendation is you do your research on the fish. You look at it. You understand where it comes from. Then you, maybe you're just that much of a research person where you go, okay, well, it's not wild caught, but its natural tendencies are that, right? It goes with anything. Look, just picked up an herbivore, but I've got this sweet krill food I'm about to feed him. Already brings the color out. Guys, girls, fish keepers all over the world, we have to understand that we have to really wrap our heads around a totality of things when it comes to setting up an aquarium. It's not just looks cool, want it, sweet, saw him do it, saw her do it, boom, snap a photo, insta flick, got the likes, woo! That's great. And if that's what wets your whistle, fine. But at the end of the day, if you want to be successful, and what I mean by successful is not burnt out and enjoying exactly what it is you are doing. Somebody just said the 2 dots or holes in the back are going there. It's driving them insane. I'm waiting for the aquarium. It's a rental house. That's right. So it is 2 screws in a stud. But that idea is I want you here for a long time. I don't want you here and go, killed all my fish. I killed all my fish and I don't know what happened. I watched YouTube videos. I did. I reached out to a couple people and they didn't respond back to me. Yeah, okay, so I didn't do water changes. And when I did one, I didn't check anything. And I put a turtle in with a bunch of guppies, and now the guppies are gone and the turtle's sick because the guppies were sick, and I don't know what to do. We got to think it through. It can't be an impulse buy. I mean, they're living creatures, just like the bacteria is in your aquarium. But at the same time, we have to understand that they are living creatures and they do require certain things. And if we want them to be healthy and we want to enjoy the environment, then we're probably going to have to do a little bit of research. Now, I will say, there are things that I've heard over time that I just don't believe anymore. And I don't believe them because I think we've evolved as understanding things like, and I'll give examples. I don't believe water changes were just to rid nitrates. I don't think that's why you should do water changes. And honestly, I don't think water changes in essence, as long as your system is stable and you're not crazy about things, I don't think that you need to do as many as what we think we're doing. I think there was this whole game of trying to keep things in a certain thing, like, oh my goodness, I need a 7.8 and it's a 7.4. Oh, here we go to 7.5, get back down to 7.1. My nitrates are 30 ppm. I don't even know what it means. Come on, somebody do a water change. Oh crap, I gotta feed them 4 more times. They're looking hungry and they need a snack. Oh, here we go. This is the idea that we're totally disconnected from really just taking a step back and going, okay, I don't want to do a ton of work on something that I enjoy, right? If you enjoy tinkering, the aquarium hobby should probably not be your thing unless you're building aquarium stands and tanks and things like that. However, somebody just said, if you do research, it saves a lot of headaches, right? If you know a little bit about the nitrogen cycle and you know a little bit about the denitrification cycle and you understand that there's always going to be bad bacteria present, and the only way to overcome bad bacteria in a sense is to provide the most stable environment you can. It's with anything, right? It's temperature swings, it's alkalinity changes, it's deficiencies in nutrients. There's so many different possibilities to it, but ideally, we really just have to understand that if we can keep a consistent, stable environment, we will enjoy consistent, unstressful, beautiful aquariums. Doesn't mean things won't happen that are bad and sometimes unexplainable, and it's hard because we're all not scientists. I certainly am not a scientist. But at the end of the day, if we try our best in exactly what we're doing, we'll be very successful. Which leads me to this before I take some questions, because I want questions. I want people to ask me questions, but I will say firmly, I'm a sand guy. I have aquariums with dirt, but I have sand with pebbles mixed in it because I find that it does look a little bit more natural, and that's what I'm into. Doesn't mean you have to be into it. If you want to do white sand, do white sand. You want to do gravel? Do gravel. Just realize for every decision we make, there is a possibility that there's a consequence, right? And that consequence may be elevated levels of something that we have to try to figure out. And sometimes taking the cheaper way isn't always the best way, even if it's better in our pocket. The better way would just be to save the money, to get the resources, to get it exactly what it is you need, instead of trying to cut corners and potentially hurting yourself in the long run. So let me give you this. Chewy just said pH is a big issue. I wondered if they're talking about a specific fish, because pH can be a big issue for a specific fish. However, what I've found over time is the number is not necessarily the biggest issue. It's the fluctuation of the number that becomes the issue. Summer is my heater. Most of my fish are subtropical and don't have heaters. And I have a heater in this aquarium, and this is a good segue. So if you remember correctly, I won some zebra Plecos. I didn't win them for free. I went into this blind auction, and I was excited, and I got a couple. So I get a message, hey, I'm going to be sending them. Here you go. And so now they're coming. And so I've set up this little ditty. I've done all the tests. I asked, now this is where I'm going to go with it. So for zebra Plecos, this is only for ammonia for my nitrification cycle because I'm using bacteria to cycle my aquarium. But as you can see, a little cloudy, got the bacteria action going. But here's the funny thing. What did I do? I immediately went to research when I was able to win them for a very, 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 very fantastic price. Hold on, somebody asked a question and I want to make sure that I answer it. It has been proven, Jay Wilson, with the crib that it is a sex ratio thing with GH and pH. Yeah, I didn't see that. I said for certain things, pH is absolutely key. But I think we fixate so much generally on that number that it's the swings. So this is a thing you probably should do. And maybe I did it subconsciously, but more so now than I have ever before. So I'm going to say his name wrong because this is what I always do and I get made fun of for it. But his name is Tristan. I say Tristan. That's just the way I say it. He owns a tropical fish store, and I was able to check out his greenhouse. There's a video I did on it. And he was holding the zebra Plecos for me. Amazing dude, just amazing. He was like, I'll hold them, I've got some, it'll be great. So now they're coming, right? What is the first thing you would think you would do? You'd be like, zebra Plecos. Temperature, got it. pH, got it. environment, okay, got it. So there are some generalizations that would apply well, right? And it's pretty easy. They come from an area that has high flow. Bing! Pretty good water. Bing! Slightly alkaline water, right? So I got to be careful because they're going to want lower than the cichlids, the Africans, right? And what are some other things? Well, TDS plays a role, right? pH, as we talked about, plays a role. Now, I can get slapped down, super awesome. I know that it is warm, pristine, high-flowing water. What else do I really need to know? Well, there is a lot, but somebody's been keeping these fish. So I reached back out to him and I said, hey, what are you running pH at? Got it. What are you running your TDS at? Got it. TDS is total dissolved solids. I've got the meter. This is my pH meter just to do a little quick check. But I've got a TDS meter. And ultimately, he gave me exactly what they've been living in and thriving. Wow, it makes total sense. Now, there are going to be some slight changes as they move because pH will fluctuate. But what we forget, matter of fact, this is actually perfect to answer this question. Somebody said something about pH. The swing occurs in nature too, wet and dry seasons, and you don't want to keep a fish in breeding conditions all the time as it will affect their reproduction. I agree. We also have to understand that there is a massive size difference in terms of pH swing in a 40-gallon aquarium or a massive body of water that's been around hundreds and hundreds of years. So while I love to look back at nature and say, okay, this is the specific concept for it, how can I replicate it in the best way? And so the idea is they're smaller, right? So, and they are carnivore, yes. I scrolled up, not sure we disagree. Absolutely, if you know the breeder previously, learn their parameters they try to maintain. Perfect, yep. So that's exactly what I was doing. So the only thing I put in there, I put in a kelp wafer and it was just to produce some food for the bacteria, right? They need ammonia to thrive. So that's exactly what I was doing for there. But I've got everything I need for them. I've got everything written out. I've got it in a message from them. They'll be here tomorrow. So I am hoping that everything works out the way I want it to work out. He's been holding them a long time for me. I went to cataclysm and that's where I got them. And I'm now just getting them due to personal issues and then COVID. And so I'm just extremely excited to have them. Yeah, I don't think a lake can swing its pH as fast as a 40-gallon aquarium. My water is close. That's the idea, right? It's like temperature shifts. Your temperature in your aquarium is going to shift faster than, let's say, Lake Tanganyika, the second oldest lake. Whatever. I'm drawing a blank, but it's old, man. It's old. I think it's the deepest besides one other point in the world. But the idea of those swings just don't happen as drastically as they do in an aquarium. And I think that's why we always say the bigger you go, the better it is on you. So we really just have to kind of keep that in mind. So any more questions? Otherwise, I'm going to kind of go over exactly what we talked about in a much faster format. And I greatly appreciate you folks tuning in and enjoying or hopefully drawing a good solid conversation over Substrate and what it does and ultimately what the benefits are. So what I think we've come across is there are so many different substrates that we can actually use in a glass box and fill it with water. Doesn't mean that it's the best for you. Here's the deal. Whatever fish you are keeping, that is the substrate you want. And what I mean by that is, before you set up this aquarium, you gotta plan it out just a little bit. You can't willy-nilly this thing around. Not for the long haul, and not for these larger aquariums. So find the best substrate that suits the exact ecosystem that you're looking to recreate, whether it's bikini bottom, or it's a biotope of the Amazon River Basin. Whatever it is, you must find the right balance for the fish that you are keeping. It's just like lighting. Most fish don't require specific lighting. However, fish can go insane if the light's too bright and on too long, just like anybody else can, because they don't have eyelids. So the other part is we have to understand that there is bacteria thriving, a solid bacteria that is taking nitrate and converting it through a process to nitrogen and pushing it out. And when it's not able to do that, it sits in a pocket and becomes anoxic, which just means lack of just no oxygen, and makes it smell like fart, AKA sulfur, which we don't know, but we kind of know it may or may not pose a risk in your aquarium with deeper sand beds. We've also talked about that saltwater aquarium fish keepers have found this out far faster than freshwater aquarium fish keepers. Now, whether you're keeping soil, gravel, or sand, whatever it is, if you're piling it on and organic waste is being trapped, yes, there is the risk for anoxic, toxic issues, for lack of better terms. So the idea for me is sand, so I can skim the top. I allow my fish to do their thing. I do prefer less fish, larger aquariums, because I find it provides a more balanced system for my needs. It means less water changes, more enjoyment, the aquarium stays clearer longer, and ultimately there's a lot of less of things I need to do to get it to where I want it to be. I have no specific schedule on feeding, and as long as we are keeping a balanced environment, more times than not, we will keep away the evil, bad bacteria. When your fish are stressed, they're constantly just being pressured by other fish, they're being fed junk, or they're feeding fed too much, and their environment is just swinging all over the place from pH to, most people don't even pay attention to, phosphate levels in their aquarium. That can pose a risk as well, but we don't. So there are so many different variations of the aquarium hobby that we miss out because we're so fixated on all these other things. But at the end of the day, a generalization is find the right substrate for exactly the fish and tank that you want to keep, because you don't want to change this out. You could be disrupting some serious good happening and potentially cause some catastrophic harm. So I'll leave you with this, unless you got some crazy questions. Find balance in your life. Find balance in everything you do, from your career to your friendships to your hobbies. Find balance. And what I mean by that is, if you just all work and no play, that's not fun. If it's all play and no work, it's no fun. It's not challenging. We really have to understand that there is a balance wherever it is. And it doesn't matter where you come from or what you do or who you believe or the route that you want to take. Matter of fact, it's all about balance. It's everything about setting a goal. Maybe you don't achieve that goal. Matter of fact, I believe, and somebody can check this, but I believe Bruce Lee said it. You can set a goal and not really attain it. But setting that goal gives you something to work towards. Whoa. And when you find balance in all of that, you find a far better you. I may be speaking from a little bit of experience. Now, granted, falling out of the attic is not the balance I was looking for, but balance is key. Think about it. Balanced diet, balanced mental state, balanced schedule, career, hobby, balanced checkbook. Balance sure is pretty important. It's matter of fact, I think it's very important. What's a checkbook? What a new lady in your life, Jay, we must know. Yeah, I do. I have a new lady in my life. I posted on Instagram. I'm living in a new house. I'm finding better balance in my life. And I believe I'm becoming a better person from it. This is my life. They're my choices. They're the things that I want to do. And there are things that I need to do to make sure that not only is my life balanced, but my son's life is balanced. And what I mean by that is he has every resource he needs, but nothing is just handed to him. And he learns to balance everything he needs to get to the place that he wants to be. I'm telling you. A whole new world. So thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And whatever you do, just find the balance. It's good. I got some videos coming out. I'm going to be getting back to some really cool things, and it's education. It's very similar to what we did tonight. I enjoy this part. I don't enjoy just showing everything I do. Does the backwards hat help my balance? No, but I think that's why they invented this. It's a balance between front and back. No, I'm going to get back to the education. I'm going to get back to exactly what it is I enjoy doing, and that's passing information along to folks so that they can become more successful. Please, Sicce, have a 3-gallon aquarium filter. We have it. It's called the Micron. Get with it. Get with it. Get it. All right. Here's the deal. It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. It's time for you to stop procrastinating. The stuff you were supposed to get out of the garage, get rid of it. The things you were supposed to write that you wronged, fix it. The stuff that was on your to-do list, let's get it done. And if you're procrastinating, stop saying it. You just don't want to do it. It's not procrastination. It's just you don't have any passion towards what it is that is sitting in front of you to get it completed. So at the end of the day, either push it to the side or do it. There is no other way. Thank you so much for watching. You know what's next.